What's up, gang? How you guys doing? It's Lieutenant Sal Blue, 28-year law enforcement veteran and the author of the top 25 mistakes en route to the good life. That's right, man. Got this beauty right here. Coming at you guys once again with my daily podcast. Now listen, today's podcast is going to be a short one. I got a action-packed week at the movies, right? I am working all week leading up to Christmas, and so between working in the daytime, sleeping in the middle, working at night till 1, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, I need to slide in my podcast and talk to you guys. So this week leading up to Christmas, I'll probably make my podcast a little shorter, but they're going to be packed with tons of information that you guys can get the most out of, because that is what I'm about. I call it a daily podcast because every day I see mistakes that people are making, and you guys need to know these mistakes so you can avoid them altogether. Avoid the mistakes altogether and have the best life possible, man. So I'm going to jump right into this podcast today. And this podcast today is about questions, man. It is about questions. Now, hopefully you guys understand that questions shape and mold our life. It is questions, right, that get you to go from point A to point B or stay right where you're at, man. Our questions that we ask need to be of the highest quality to have the best life possible. You need to start asking the right questions, guys. If you don't start asking the right questions, you're going to be going in the wrong direction. So the question of today's podcast, as you guys know, every time I have a podcast, I like to throw a question out there to get your brain stimulated and get you guys thinking. And today's question is, how have you been asking your questions? Now, how about that? Now, so I like the little play on words of today's question is, how have you been asking your questions? Well, if you have not learned from the pattern that I've been using in my daily podcast to ask questions for you guys, then listen up today, because today is going to be a barn burner, quick, fast, in a hurry podcast. Just telling you guys, quick and easy, how you need to go about asking your questions to have a better life, man. Now, remember I want to start this off by telling you guys, remember one of the most powerful quotes of all time when it comes to questions. All right, I'm gonna see if you guys know what it is. Well, all right, since this is not live today, it is a quick one. It is from the Bible. Ask and you shall receive. Right? Ask and you shall receive. If that is not the biggest hint of the fact that in order to have a good life you need to ask questions, then I don't know what else is, guys. You need to be asking questions, right? So the question is, right, if you wish to become successful at whatever it is you decide to do, what is the right way to ask yourself a question? That's right. What is the right way to ask yourself a question? Because I know for me, and me telling you, it's not just enough for me to tell you that you need to ask questions. You need to be asking the questions the right way. So what is the right way for you to ask questions? Now, I'm going to give you just from my experience and what I've learned, right? Now, it is the difference, right? And I've watched successful people, tons of them, and I've watched tons of failures, man. I've seen more failures than I care to see, right? It is sad. But the difference between people who live their lives as successful or at the top of their field, like the best of their field, right? And the other person who is always feeling overwhelmed and is consistently feeling like overwhelmed, overworked, depressed, not getting the most out of their career that they want. Well, the difference is this, right? The difference is the consistent difference, right? The consistency of the type of questions that they ask, right? Now, any of you guys have studied any type of psychology, sociology, philosophy, or even law, you know that there's several different type of questions, and questions can move you in any direction as far as your life is concerned. There are a lot of questions that they say are leading questions, questions that kind of lead you in a direction that they want you to go, right? Then there are other questions that get you to bring out of you something that you didn't realize that you had inside of you. And so those are the questions that I think are very, very vital in order for you to have the best life possible. Now, during my career, throughout my career in law enforcement, guys, I came across officers who could handle just about anything that was thrown their way. These officers were super, super powerful when it came to situations in life, right? Now, officers who can handle anything that came their way, they were so good with people, man. They were so good with people and situations and just life in general. And on top of that, they also had good personal life outside of work, right? Good personal life outside of work. They had a healthy social life, right? Outside of work, they weren't trying to hide anything, or this is how the life they were living. They were living a pretty good life, right? And then there were the officers who would always have everyone else on high alert, right? Every time they came on duty, every time they were there, because these other officers, right, they always had that feeling of overwhelmed. They always felt overwhelmed by whatever assignment. You could give them a counting assignment. Just count how many people are in the crowd today, right? They were overwhelmed by that. They were constantly overwhelmed by whatever assignment that was given to them, okay? And they always felt that no matter what work was given to them, it was an overload. They were overloaded with the work that was tasked to them. And so a lot of their work always fell upon other officers. It fell upon their commanding supervisors. You know, so those were the two type of people that I seen consistently. Now, unfortunately, I saw more of the second half than the first half, right? And because of, you know, what happens is, as I tell you guys, the environment is destiny, right? So what happens is when you get tons of people like this who always feel overwhelmed and overworked, right, and overloaded, they're always looking for other people to bring into that net, right? And when they bring other people into that net, what they try to do is they try to shape and mold the job and the work so that they can do less and less and less as time goes on. And so when you have jobs with unions and stuff like that, eventually what happens is, right, people end up doing less and less work, right, and less things actually get done, and everybody as a whole becomes far less productive. So I like to stick to the people who like to get things done, man. People who are asking themselves the right questions. So over the years, right, as I've counseled more than my fair share of the second type of officer, what I learned was that the two different officers, the two things that the officers focused on were their purpose, right? Were their purpose, and so kind of lost my train of thought there for a minute, guys. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is the two officers, two groups of officers, they focused on two different things in order to get the job done. So when they came on duty each and every day, or before they came to work each and every day, they both focused on two different things, right? The overwhelmed officers focused on a lot of disempowering questions, right? And those disempowering questions were things like, what is the use, right? What is the use of doing this? What is the use of counting these people? What is the use of going out here and patrolling this area? What is the use? That is always what they came up with, right? Or one of the other questions was, you know, especially if they failed at something in the past, was why even try? Why should I even be trying to do this, right? You know, who can do this anyway, right? And that is another disempowering question. that they would always use. And probably the worst question that I used to receive from the officers that were full of overwhelm and never really got the job done was the why me. Always why me, right? This was a constant, a steady, and the officers that didn't get things done. They were always like, why me? Why do I have to do it? Why me? What is going on? Why me, right? And so when you start to ask why me, that's not going to get you anywhere. That is a disempowering question that serves very little purpose when it comes to moving you forward, guys. Very little purpose. So here's the deal, right? In life, period, if you ask a terrible question, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a terrible answer. So questions like, what's the use? Why me? Why even try? You're going to get terrible answers. And those terrible answers are going to circulate through your mind, and it's going to stifle any positive actions that you could have done in that particular situation, right? So those terrible answers will not benefit you, and they will not move you forward, guys. They will not move you forward. So understand that when it comes to asking yourself terrible questions. You got to shape and mold your questions for your benefit, not to your detriment. So I have seen someone who has asked why me produce positive results from. I've never seen anybody who's asked the question why me get positive results from that, as I was talking about before, guys. But I tell you what, I found it a lot more empowering to ask yourself this way, right? And I would go about framing it this way in order to get the most out of it. Because of this particular circumstance, right? So you're in a particular circumstance that you are dealing with. My question that you would ask yourself is, how can I use this, right? How can I use this circumstance that I'm currently in, okay, and just leave it at that? How can I use this, right? And moving forward, how can I use this to move forward? How can I use this in a positive way? How can I use this to benefit me? How can I use this to benefit whomever, right? That is how you have to ask your question. Because remember, guys, behind every adversity, and I said this before, behind every adversity lies the seed of equal or greater benefit. So if you have a circumstance and you believe that it's a bad circumstance that you're in, and it could be a bad circumstance that you're in, right? You need to ask yourself that type of question, an empowering question, so that you can now start to think of the equivalent benefit, the seed, right? And I only say seed because you have to ask the question in order to water the seed, in order for the equivalent benefit to grow, so that you can use it, okay, to your advantage in whatever you do. Now, understand, guys, our questions determine everything we do in life. Our questions, I'm going to say that once again, our questions determine everything we do in life. Now, this counts for everything when it comes to our talents, right? Things that we can do, things that we're good at, our talents. It counts for our relationships, how we have relationships with people, our intimate relationships, all our relationships, all questions, right? As well as our income. Our income is even determined by our questions, right? How you're going to invest, what are you going to invest, who are you going to follow, right? What advice are you going to take? All of those things, okay, start with a question, and the question is what gets you to start moving forward, guys. The question is what gets you to move forward. So I want you to understand this as well, guys. It is not only the questions you ask, but the questions you fail to ask that determine how your life will turn out. So think of this, right? and I'll use a relationship for example. If you're in a relationship and you have something on your mind, one of the things that me and my wife started doing for one another is that when we beat around the bush, right? My wife would say to me, just say what's on your mind. And I'll say to her, just say what's on your mind, right? And so we kind of like got to the point in our relationship where we cut to the chase. But more importantly, guys, you have to start asking the right questions, okay, to get the right answers. So you want to shape and mold yourself to always be asking questions, right? The most important thing that you guys can do, as I'm coming close to wrapping this up, is to never stop asking questions. Never stop asking questions, guys, okay? Because stop asking questions is basically halting your progress. Okay, so I want to finish this off by just reading something from Albert Einstein, and it has a direct impact to questioning, right? And he says, curiosity has its own reason for existing, right? One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is not enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery every day. Never lose a holy curiosity. And that was by Albert Einstein, man. And one thing that I tell you guys is always be curious. You have to constantly, steadily be curious, always asking yourself the questions that help you to have the life that you want and to determine the direction that you're going to go with your life. So always be curious, man. So that's it, man. I'm gonna wrap this up for today. Speaking of being curious, man, you guys need to be curious and grab a copy of my book, Top 25 Mistakes En Route to the Good Life, second edition, right? I have it on Amazon for $19.95, as well as on my website with tons of extras on my website for $9.95. That is you paying the shipping. That's all you're paying for. So it's basically free on my website, as well as I'm giving out autographed copies on my website. So hop on over to lieutenantsalblue.com and get your autographed copy today, man. So listen, I'm gonna wrap this up for today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow will be another short podcast, right? And so that's it, man. Make sure you guys hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, and all the social medias, so that I can know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow and those days after. And also, guys, if I decide to choose one of your topics, right? Because you can shoot me a DM and on YouTube as well. If I choose one of your topics, I will send you tons of bonuses, man, tons of bonuses. So go ahead and hop on there and take your shot, man. This is Lieutenant Sal Blue. I'm wrapping it up for today, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow, man. Deuces.